How many of these have you done?
81? 82. This is 82.
Yeah.
All right.
And you don't even know what button to push.
Yeah. I didn't even do that when I recorded.
Oh, God. Just go.
All right. Welcome back, Inebri-arts. This is Andy of the Inebri-art podcast. We are, of course, back here at the Craft Beer Cellar on Main Street in Plymouth. They can help you out with all your beer needs. And we are here today with author Stephen Van Samson, who I met through the New England Horror Writers Association? Association. So I actually met them back at Super Mega Fest, I think it was back in November, and I put a general post on their Facebook page, been like, hey, who wants to come on the podcast? And you're one of the people who reached out. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously, you're a writer.
It's true.
And how many novels have you put out?
I put out 2 novels so far. They both came out last year.
Okay.
So I sort of had this kind of weird writing process where I decided to hold off until the sequel was done.
So was this kind of like a Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings, I'm going to do the whole thing at once kind of thing?
It was more like at the end of the first one, I thought that was going to be it. And when I got there, I decided, actually, I think I can tell one more story with this world, and it wasn't planned at all until I pretty much wrote that last scene, kind of.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
kind of like as you wrote the last scene, you're like,
pretty much.
Oh shit, I can do more with that.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I completely intended it to be a one-off because I've written some other stuff over the years. I've been writing for about 7 years, I would say, but it was a matter of finishing certain things, shopping them around, kind of deciding whether or not I wanted to self-publish and learning about that whole process and just deciding if it was right for me.
And what did you decide on? Are you self-published?
So I'm self-published,
okay.
Yeah. So this is through Amazon's CreateSpace.
All right.
And so, yeah, I decided this is going to be the thing I'm going to put out there. The previous... I did almost do not a Peter Jackson, but almost a Tolkien, where it ended up being this monstrous, behemoth of a thing
that
I
one
finished.
would pick up and read because they're like, oh, that's huge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I sort of got to it. I'm like, yeah, I don't actually want to have an 800-page book here, so perhaps I'll split this into 2. And then I started to, for about a year, I shopped around that first novel. And not that I'm here to talk about failures, but, it hasn't been picked up as of today.
Well,
but that's okay.
It's not really a failure if you keep working on it.
Oh, yeah, totally.
You're
absolutely.
just not done.
No, I know. Absolutely.
So it's called...
No art is wasted.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. So that one is just kind of on the shelf. And I decided it was a little bit too hard to fit into a box.
Okay.
And I sort of got that into my head that was maybe part of the issue. So I came up with this, which I put out.
Okay, and this one's called Bone Eater King?
Yeah, The Bone Eater King.
You give us the sales pitch so we can our listeners at least
Absolutely.
Know what it's about.
Absolutely. So this is my incredibly short elevator speech is this is...
It doesn't have to be short. We're like 45 minutes long.
Yeah.
Take some time.
I'll give you the short one first.
All right, okay.
We'll say that.
Right.
No, so it's basically a book about vampires in Africa. So
Okay.
full stop. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, I've always loved horror, and my first thing that I wrote was not horror, and I thought, geez, why am I not a horror writer? I should write horror. And I came up with a few ideas. I was, trying to decide on what to write, and then I said, well, you know what, though? You know what, the 2 things I'm never going to write a book about, though, because I'm so sick of them, are zombies and vampires. Boy, I'm sick of them. And then the next day, I had like 2 ideas for vampire stories.
Yeah.
And
I feel like vampires, though, have been underused recently because I feel like vampires were very heavy 80s. Like, I feel like 80s you couldn't swing a dead cat.
Twilight
didn't happen.
really hurt them.
I don't feel like that happened.
It didn't?
No.
I'm pretty sure it did.
I never heard of it.
I think Stephanie Meyer book sales will probably have something to say about that. Yeah. I think that, honestly, it just turned into that. And I think it was like, okay, this is a romantic thing. I mean, Anne Rice existed. You know, she was very successful for a lot of years. Yeah. But I love the history of horror, and I'm really way into old movies and stuff like that. And you know, I appreciate a lot of takes on a lot of things. I think romantic vampires are just not for me. I'm not the target audience. I have nothing against them personally. It's fine. But I said, I want to see something.
They should be allowed to get married like everybody else.
Sure, sure. What you do in the
privacy
of your own coffin. You took the words. I couldn't get it out. You did it. Thanks.
It's funny. I actually saw a vampire movie recently that I loved, and it was totally different. My son was actually like, "Oh, have you seen this?" And I'm like, "No." I think it was on Amazon Prime. What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Taika Waititi.
Yeah, it was
Jermaine
fantastic.
Clement.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I'm a huge Flight of the Conchords fan. I've seen them in concert. I mean, they're awesome. I love that show so much, and I pretty much devour anything that's either Jermaine Clement or Rhys Darby or Taika Waititi and Brett. What was Brett's last name? Brett. The other half of the Conchords.
The Conchords, yeah.
He won like an Oscar or a Grammy or something for the soundtrack to the Muppets.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
it was
cool.
pretty awesome. Yeah. But anyway. I digress.
Back to your book. So, vampires in Africa.
Yeah.
Like what setting? Like what time frame? Like when did it?
So I like to call it near future. It's a post-apocalyptic story. It takes place in the near future.
I do like post-apocalyptic stories.
So I think that if I could say that I have a mission statement as an author, it is to
sell books.
That's actually so true. I can't even tell you how true that is. Secondary to that, though, would be if I had an artistic mission statement. Right. Let's say it's definitely to show people what they haven't already seen 1,000 times. Like absolutely. I'm a huge proponent of diversity in character. Yeah. I think that there is absolutely not enough diversity in especially genre type stories.
Yeah.
I sci-fi horror are huge loves of mine, and they are dominated widely by white casts that have sometimes, the token non-white person here or there. And so I don't know, I just was sick of that. I am sick of that.
Yeah.
I felt like, okay, well, I haven't really seen too many really good stories of vampires that are taken seriously and star black casts.
Right.
You have your Blackula, which is, satire essentially.
Right.
Eddie Murphy had Vampire in Brooklyn.
Oh my God, that's
which,
right.
by the way, I actually love.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually recently wrote like an article on this, but it's it's in my opinion, feel free to disagree, world, but I think it's a great movie that was mismarketed.
Yeah,
and the name of it alone, if you combine these two elements, the name Vampire in Brooklyn and Eddie Murphy with a Jerry curl wig on the poster.
Do you think it was...
This is not something you're going to take seriously.
Right. Do you think it was kind of like at the wrong time? Because I remember that was, I don't want to say in its decline, but that was post Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
But
it was pre, I believe, you know what? Oh, I'm about to say it was pre Nutty Professor, and I don't know, because that was really...
I think it was.
Because that was the Renaissance. That's
kind of when he started to come back into family movies.
Yes. Eddie Murphy's Renaissance was Nutty Professor.
Right, so it was kind of like in between the... oh, shit, what was the stand-up thing called? I'm totally blanking. But, like, it was in between Dirty Eddie Murphy and Family Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like in that no man's land of his career.
And you know who made Vampire in Brooklyn? Like, nobody remembers this. It's a Wes Craven movie.
Is it really?
It's a Wes Craven movie.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things I wish more people would go back and watch, because it's like, I guess, a, quote, black comedy, a dark, meaning dark, not African American. It's a dark comedy.
Which is, and the funniest thing, I feel like if you asked Joe Schmo on the street, been like, name a black vampire movie, they would just go Blade.
Oh, yeah.
And Blade is the only black dude in those movies.
So I am so happy to hear you say that, because that was essentially like a big thing when, Black Panther was just coming out.
Yeah.
And like 98% of humans were super excited. And then there was like the 2% and part of the remaining 2%, 1% didn't give a crap. The other half was like, well, what is all this big hubbub about? I don't understand this whole, it's the first black superhero. What about Blade? And that really is my argument, is that Blade is almost the token black guy in Blade. He has his mother.
Yeah.
His mother is in it. Mm-hmm. She is black, and the female lead, I don't know her name. The woman, she's not the romantic. There is no romantic lead for Blade, but she fulfills that essential role basically. Right. They just don't ever become romantic. Involved, but other than that, it's all white guys. The bad guys, Deacon Frost.
It's not a
Stephen Dorff.
Cast of black people. It's one black dude.
It's right, and he's the best character, and he's the lead character. Yeah. He's the most interesting. He's the one you love. He's the only one you probably love besides, Whistler is just Chris Christopherson is just like so amazingly great in that first movie, especially. But
Triple H was pretty good in the third one.
You made a vampire Pomeranian.
Yeah. But it's now I'm gonna have to go back and check out that.
Yeah, Vampire in Brooklyn. It at the end of the movie, I remember thinking the very first time I ever saw it. I remember thinking, "Wow, this wasn't a comedy at all." And I know that there are blatant jokes and parts that are supposed to be humorous and all this stuff and whatnot. But I think that it sort of reads more like comic relief in a non-comedy. I don't know.
But see,
feel free to disagree, world. This is just my opinion.
I feel like just because it's a horror movie doesn't mean there can't be funny stuff. Like, my favorite horror movie is Shaun of the Dead.
I love Shaun of the Dead, yeah.
It's an amazing movie because it starts off pretty much as a straight comedy, but by the time you get to the end, you're like, this is fucking scary.
Yeah. There are a lot of horror fans that will say, keep your chocolate out of my peanut butter, meaning... Yeah. And by that I mean horror and comedy.
Right.
Get it away, And I don't know. I love it.
I think it adds to
when it's done right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean,
but I think it adds to the arc, because there's action movies that I don't like because it's just action to the point where you're like, I'm kind of oversaturated.
Yeah.
You need
the Michael Bay problem. It's all white noise.
I didn't want to name Michael Bay, but yeah. Exactly. But, where you have that moment where you can laugh, I think it makes the scary moment scary.
I agree. It completely takes you off the edge of your seat for a second.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm safe now. I'm good.
Right.
And it also is a matter for me of not taking yourself too seriously, which is, I think, my third mantra. Like, come on. Like, why do we take ourselves so seriously?
Yeah.
I mean, just enough. But, that horror and comedy has been together for a lot longer than chocolate and peanut butter. I mean, you can go back. For me, the first real horror comedy picture is the original Cat and the Canary, and that's a silent movie, and that was from 20. I'm gonna guess on this, but it's 26 or 27.
Right.
So. And that is a movie that is blatantly funny on purpose. Now, it's what they call an old dark house picture.
Okay.
So this is, old dark house movies are essentially a subgenre that I adore, that are basically the movies with all the people trapped in one house, like House on a Haunted Hill, or, there's tons of them.
Sure.
The Old Dark House starring Karloff is one of my all-time favorite movies ever. But yeah, Cat and the Canary is hilarious. There is this character in it, and she's like this really super serious, stiff upper-lipped maid who just is constantly throwing shifty glances left and right, and her name is Mammy Pleasant. That's her name.
Okay.
They knew, they're absolutely trying to be funny. And there are many moments in that are genuinely freaky.
Yeah.
And, well, especially for the time,
Sure,
we take off our, modern goggles, but, our jaded goggles. But, I mean, there's, plenty of, I laugh. I mean, maybe it's just me, but, I laugh out loud. So, I don't know. I think that, horror and comedy is great together. But, so maybe that's why I'm a little bit more forgiving about Vampire in Brooklyn. But yeah, Blade's awesome. Love Blade. Awesome. Really great. But I had never seen a movie with the whole cast. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why Black Panther is so special, the movie.
Yeah.
And it really is something different. And it's something, that
it was
a lot of people have rallied behind, which is great.
The fact that and Wonder Woman came out like very close to each other, I feel like they're both important for the same reason.
Sure. Because it was like, essentially, Black Panther was like, oh, everybody's happy about an African-American cast of, like, these amazing actors.
Oh, God, yeah.
Like, holy crap, just the cast is
when
just...
Forrest Whitaker isn't the best actor in your movie,
right.
Holy shit.
Right, seriously, right? And then it comes out and you're seeing it, and I'm watching it, I'm like, honestly, this isn't just a triumph for black actors and for diversity. This is like the best women. These are the best female characters.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I loved Wonder Woman, but this is better.
Yeah.
This is better woman power than Wonder Woman was somehow. Yeah. And who knew? It's called Black Panther. You're like, I'm going to be behind the Blade guy.
There's 3 strong black women in it.
Yeah.
And it's not a woman's movie.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a whole section of the movie, which I've heard other people say this. I personally agree. My favorite part of the movie is when Black Panther, T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman, is missing.
Yeah.
And the 3 women take over as the leads of the movie.
My favorite character in the movie was his sister.
Great. Oh, yeah. She was so awesome.
Fantastic.
And she came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
She was one of the only actors I wasn't excited about because I didn't know her.
Yeah.
That's the only reason. I didn't know her at all. And now I've seen her Black Mirror episode. And she was...
Which was it in
It's
season 4?
called Museum, and I think it was from season 4.
Okay, so I'm not all the way through season 4 yet. So
It was good.
All right,
it was very good. She was very, very good.
Yeah.
Her and the guy, I think his name's Winston Duke, who played M'Baku.
Yeah.
Who was the ape man.
Yeah. He was great.
He was ended up being my favorite character in the movie, and I just had no preconceived notions of either him or the sister.
Yeah.
And I was so expecting to love. I'm going to love Michonne from Walking Dead. That's who I'm going to love. And she was amazing. I loved her character. But yeah, I don't know. Like there were even amidst that cast of people I did care about, there were a couple that shone. I mean, Michael B. Jordan for me stole the movie technically, but I wish I could remember the woman who plays Shuri. I don't remember her name.
Yeah.
She was fantastic, though.
And the interesting thing...
Winston Duke was just great.
I was talking with someone the other day, and they were talking about, that backlash. They're like, oh, Black Panther, there'd be issues if it was White Panther. And he was kind of like, just let us have the one fucking movie. Yeah. I'm like, you're missing the point. And he's like, what? I'm like, Black Panther was named by white guys. Like, he was created by... Marvel, which was at the time, that was
Stan Lee
white guy central. It's like if you want to complain to the white guy that came up with him.
Right?
Is that accurate? I'm not totally blowing that. I'm not losing my nerd cred and roll something out at me.
I really think you're right. I mean, I know he debuted way back in like the 60s or something, but it was in Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was.
And
I don't know.
It's. I mean, at the time, it's.
Feel like that was still Stan Lee, actively writing comics, and it was just the 60s.
At the very least, he was editor.
Sure.
I mean, it was a predominantly white media.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, at least run.
And you can tell
not necessarily the people consuming the media.
All the African American characters were all named Black something.
Well,
Black Goliath, Black Panther. Yeah. I mean, it was just
Black Lightning and. Which also has a show now, which is cool. But I don't know. So I guess back to my little book I wrote, The Bone Eater King. The point was that I wanted something we haven't seen before. Scary vampires. Let's make them scary again. Let's make them monstrous. Let's make them unique, and let's leave out the pasty Europeans. Let's just leave them out.
Yeah.
So in this world, now the series I call it Predator World, and the reason why this is how I define it. I'm just going to read a little blurb here. It's from the back of this little promo card. So I say, once there were no more plant eaters, carnivores had to turn on each other for food. Lion preyed upon the jackal and the hyena upon the leopard, though all cowered before Africa's new apex, the Masatsaku Maza. So I've come up with like this, my own type of vampire, and it's the Masatsaku Maza, which translates into leech man in Hausa, which is one of the national languages of Uganda.
Did you do a lot of research into that language? Are you fluent? Or
No,
just
certainly
kind
not.
of-
No.
Yeah.
I am. Everything has been learned through Google, which I know is going to make everybody groan. But it's a matter of double and triple checking things and trying my best to make it as accurate as I can. I mean, for sure, I would love someday to hear if somebody was from the countries where this takes place. It takes place in Tanzania.
Okay.
But the main character is a Maasai, and the second main character, who actually takes over as the lead character in the second book, is a woman, and she's from Uganda. And so I really, really tried to pull in as much geography as I could and really learn about the area. And I knew that I wanted this to be I knew I wanted it to essentially be a road story.
Yeah.
It's like a road movie, a road book. It's like we're going from point A to point B, and I knew that it was going to take place in a single night because I didn't want to deal with what happens when the sun comes up. I wanted that to be the end of the book.
Okay.
I wanted it to let's race the sun.
Yeah.
We have to get to do what we're trying to do tonight, right now. So the whole book is peppered with this this immediate
That has
call
give
to
it some
action.
urgency,
We have to go. Keep moving. And so it's I hope something that will build tension in the reader, and that they're excited and that they're on the edge of their seat and all this stuff. But
So I don't want to give anything away. Is the second book the next night?
it's some indeterminate amount of time later that you have to sort of read to find out just how much time has passed.
Okay.
It opens and you're not really sure.
All right.
So, but that is a question that is answered. But I very much, I really, really had a lot of fun writing it, and it was the hardest thing I've had to write. The sequel is called Marrow Dust, and so I really, it was scary. It was the first sequel I've done. As I said, the first time I wrote a second book, it was really the first book I had split in half.
Right.
So that essentially did not count at all. And this was the first one I said, okay, I'm going to start a sequel. Let's see what it can be. And I hate when sequels feel tacked on. I don't want, it's the worst when I feel like, okay, you're milking it.
They're either tacked on, or you get to that point where, like, every story, especially if it's a sci-fi horror type thing, has rules for that universe. And I hate when, and I love some shows or stories or whatever, but I hate when they break their own rule.
Oh my God, me too.
Because there's a really, really great show. Have you ever heard of Dead Like Me?
Yeah.
Fantastic show, but they repeatedly...
Mandy Patinkin.
Yeah. They repeatedly break their own
I hate
rules
that.
in it.
Oh, man.
And it makes me mad, but it's like, it's such a good show, but...
Yeah. I despise that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I despise that. I'm
And I'm sure some of that is in a field like TV shows. I'm sure a lot of that is changing in writers and whatnot. But that's got to be the hardest thing about when you have a sequel. It's I have these rules and I'd really like the story to go in this direction, but how do I make it go in that direction without breaking that rule?
Yep. It's a lot of notes. You're like, oh yeah, what did I say about this before? I don't know.
Where did I have this character end up?
Yeah, totally. And some of it for me was that made it feel legitimate to myself, to sort of justify doing it is, there were a lot of things that I sort of left unanswered in the first book, intentionally, not plot hole things. I think. Can we just have 1 second? I think that the term plot hole's broken at this point. I don't think anybody knows what it means anymore. They just say it. Yeah. They're like, oh, I hated this. It's a plot hole. It's like, no, that's not actually what a plot hole is. Like everything, it's like the most wrongly used term. I feel I hate it.
I also
things can be left unsaid.
Yeah.
You don't need to know everything.
Yes.
It's not necessarily. It can be maybe it's a plot hole.
Right.
Maybe you done screwed up.
Maybe it's just not explained.
Maybe. Yeah. You didn't need to know that.
But I also really, really hate when there's that person that overanalyzes the movie and finds this glaring, possibly plot hole.
Yep.
And then you're like, well, how many times did you have to watch the movie before you realized that this dude in the background could potentially, or because he ordered a different drink than like you would expect him to, had some weird ramification on this. Can't you just shut up and watch the movie and enjoy it? Like,
well, I think people, because of the internet, I think people really like to feel important by pointing out how much stuff sucks.
Yeah,
I think that's just the culture that we live in.
I
it's
very
the
much
world.
believe, but I also feel some of it is because of the technology we have, where I don't know how old you are, but when I was a kid, you watched it on TV,
Yep.
and then it was gone. And you might catch it on TV again, and then with the dawn of HBO, you could watch it a bunch of times. But once you get into the VHS and DVD, you can watch it over and over and over and over. And your 400th time through the movie, you're going to notice things that you never noticed before. But just let it go.
Yeah.
I mean, no one watches it that much. And
Well, I love that idea of discovery with something that you're familiar with. I think that that's a testament of something truly great.
Well, I do like when there's Easter eggs or like little bits of the story. Like one of my favorite things is Arrested Development, because every time you watch it, you can pick up on a joke or a little thing.
I mean, that's
it.
like the perfect
It's
example.
unbelievable.
Yeah, definitely.
But these people that will find that thing just to kind of then go and nitpick it. It's if you don't like it, give yourself a chance at making your own thing and see how it turns out.
I mean, I think the rule of thumb is just don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like, I think that really, like, people would be a lot nicer if they didn't concentrate so hard on being assholes all the time, right? I mean, like just freaking let it go.
Yeah.
So you didn't like The Last Jedi, move on. Like, do you really got to make a 20-second video about it on YouTube to justify yourself and have all these comments?
People are really
like, come on, let it go.
Both sides of that argument are very adamant. People either love it or hate it.
It's true. It's true. I mean, there's just no in between. Yeah. Nobody's saying like it was all right.
Yeah,
it was all right.
I didn't hate it. Yeah. And, there were certain parts where I'm like, oh, that looked weird. My buddy's like, what do you mean? Don't you think that she could use the Force to do this? I'm like, it just looked weird. I'm just saying it looked weird.
Like settle down.
Yeah, I'm not saying the movie's terrible.
Sit back down.
It looked weird.
Put your jacket. Take your jacket off. Sit down. You're fine. We're all adults here.
So, is there going to be a third installment of the book?
I don't know. I think that at this point, I'd like to move on to other things. I'm currently writing.
No, it has to be a trilogy.
It
has to be a trilogy.
Part of me wants to just throw a big middle finger up because that's the thought that it has to be a trilogy. Everything has to be a trilogy, and to me, I sort of feel like completely satisfied in my duology. I don't know, like it's. I feel like it's completely done. Other than I would love to. And a lot of other authors are doing this where they essentially put out a book of short stories set in the world.
Yeah.
So I would love to have like a third Predator World book that's not a novel, but yet Tales
set in the same space, but just different people.
Sure. Tales of Predator, and there are a few stories that I feel like were sort of set up in the one or other of the books that I feel like, oh, you know what? I feel like I could just tell the story like in a short sort of span here. Yeah. Maybe 15 pages is all I need. I don't need to write a whole third book around it. But I think that would be great someday to go back and do that, and maybe I will. I definitely have some ideas. But as far as the third novel, I don't know. I really, truly feel like you get to the end of it, and it ended up being...
if it's done, just leave it.
The character that I started off as my main character, as I said, I sort of switched. And when I realized it was her story... I realized where it needed to end, and I feel like she is done. I feel like her story's done, and I sort of feel like that's okay.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and like you said, there's nothing worse than it being tacked on.
Yeah,
and like,
it's the worst.
It was popular, so I'm going to do more.
Right, I don't have to worry about that because this isn't very popular. So, like, I don't know. That's what's freeing about being an indie author.
Yeah.
But hey.
But the way the world works now.
Yep.
Is it could become extremely popular.
Well, I mean, I'm hoping after tonight.
Oh yeah,
I'm hoping after tonight. Yeah,
there'll be like 8 people reading this thing.
Yeah.
That's a comment. That's a comment on our audience, not your book.
I'll take it either way. It's funny both ways.
So, if it got to the point where it made it to a movie, do you have in your mind like? It'd be really cool if this actor played this character.
Yeah, I want Well, okay. All along, I sort
And
of
did that change post Black Panther?
I I wrote the character. So the woman who becomes the main character of the second book, her name is Marela Nanji, and in the book, she goes mainly by Ray. Now, I don't care if anybody is interested. I actually had the character name before Star Wars came out, and there was a female Ray. And at the time, I was like, I'm being so clever. I'm giving her a boy's name.
Yeah.
And anyway, now I'm derivative. Oh, well. So Ray, I wrote the entire time, and I personally pictured Lupita Nyong'o, who was in Black Panther.
Yeah.
And I feel like she'd be great. I feel like, lots of actresses would be great, but I wrote it with her in mind.
Yeah.
And I describe her face. One of the main points of description that she has is that her upper lip is bigger than her bottom lip, and that I sort of I'm just describing Lupita Nyong'o. That's all.
But I feel like that's almost like two different schools of writing. I feel like some people will picture a specific person and kind of like write kind of for that person, and then other people will not do that. So I think it's just kind of a different
like doing it.
style. Yeah.
I think it's kind of fun. I don't do it across the board.
Yeah.
But I definitely picture her. Now, my main character of the first one is the Masai character. He's complete amnesiac, so he doesn't know what's going on. So the book opens, and I like to say, picture this.
Okay.
Okay. Picture this. You wake up, and you have absolutely no idea where you are. You have absolutely no idea who you are. You look down at your hands, and they're covered in blood. You look around, and you are in the middle of an African savanna at night, and you literally have no idea what's going on. And then eyes appear in the darkness, and teeth and laughing noises.
That's not disturbing at all.
Right. So there are things out there, roughly a foot off the ground. They're laughing at you, and you just run.
Yeah.
And so that's the start of the book. And this guy really is just trying to figure out what the hell is going on, who he is, and it's not like he has time to do that.
Yeah.
Because we've all seen plenty of amnesiac type stories. I wanted this to be like, okay, but you got like 3 hours.
Right.
That's your window of figuring anything out at all. And so I presented the situation where he just immediately has to book it. Go. And then he runs into this woman, and she maybe knows more than he does about who he is, and it's very much a story of discovery, figuring out what's going on, and there are most definitely monsters in the darkness.
Yeah.
Some of them laugh, and I really, really loved the idea of when I described how I define predator world. There are no more herbivores pretty much at all. So there are some actual animals that are also at this point they're starved. Because the whole seed of this idea came from two things. One was a story by Conan writer Robert E. Howard, who I'm a huge fan of. He wrote a story about vampires set in Africa. It was actually one of his Solomon Kane stories. It's called Hills of the Dead, and I credit it in the book in the foreword. And I love that story. But the other was this idea that I've always had, this thought that I've always had, I guess, with vampires is they're sort of, if you look at them biologically, eventually they're just going to burn out their own food supply. Unless you say, oh, they're the romantic sort and they're smart enough to conserve their food source. And we saw that in Blade. We see that in Underworld. We see that in stuff. And they're okay. Well, the sophisticated vampires, maybe they could exist for a while. But if you're talking about the other kind, the scary kind, the kind that, they're essentially, monsters, then, they're going to kill themselves off by devouring all their food source, and then they make new vampires, and there's less and less food real quick. What do they do when there's no more humans?
And that's always been kind of my, you know how people get like super serious about stuff that isn't real.
Oh yeah, well,
You know,
a non-geek probably couldn't have written this book. I mean,
But that's always my argument for a zombie apocalypse could not happen.
Yeah.
You cannot reproduce the same way you eat.
yeah,
It just doesn't work, you know, because eventually you run out.
yeah. And I also think that zombies tend to be viable a little too long in movies, where it's like, well, are there tendons left on that one? Why is he moving?
Right? Yeah, yeah.
Eventually, they're just gonna, even if it's a pile of bones with the desire to bite me. Like, come on.
Yeah.
That's why I like World War Z. World War Z made a lot more sense. They were viable for a very short amount of time. Okay, maybe not the movie.
Thank you.
I'm talking about the Max Brooks book.
Yes, which was amazing.
Yeah, and they were
The movie to me was just like, hey, we have the zombie movie and the rights to World War Z.
So we're going to name it this.
Yeah.
And people are going to be like, oh, I've heard of that. I hate that. Actually, I didn't see the movie. I don't know.
Honestly,
I've heard it wasn't bad.
If it was called anything else,
right.
And I was joking with a friend of mine one time, and I'm like, they should have taken, you know, like a title from a crappy movie. And so we're like, oh, let's call it Battleship Earth. Because it was just all over the world, you know, crazy fights, zombies. Sure, that works. And because it just had nothing to do with the book.
The Revenge of Yonkers.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I've heard it was better than...
It wasn't terrible.
Because I was giving it no credit for the longest time. And it's like, well, you haven't seen it. So that's fair. I haven't seen it. That's true.
It's that if you go in expecting... If someone put it on and you didn't see the movie title, and you'd be like, yeah, this was all right.
But like, it infuriates me because that book is so filmable. It just needs to be like The Office. It's just a documentary style, or at least something like District 9 was.
Yeah,
you know, where it's half
it could have been
interview.
Done so well with like half the budget.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know,
there's not much spectacle in that book. It's
very,
all clinical. It's all very, you know, after the fact. This is what we went through. I think you could do. I honestly think District 9 is a pretty good template for how it would work.
Yeah.
You would have scenes where the character's addressing the camera crew.
Yeah.
And then you'd have scenes where that just sort of stops, and they don't really talk about it anymore because, you know, in District 9, Wickus just eventually he just is in a movie all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And you sort of like wonder when it stopped being a documentary. You're like, but what is the camera following him? No, the camera's not following him. You're just in a movie
kind of
now.
Get absorbed into absorbed into it. Yeah, and you just kind of
yes. And I think that would be perfect.
Yeah.
No problem. Like, let's make this movie. Why not? Oh, well, they wanted a big
late.
spectacle with a 10 million zombie wall and well.
No.
Hey.
Maybe next time.
Yeah, I think, coincidentally, filmmakers out there, if you're looking for a inexpensive property to pick up, you can contact me about the Bone Eater King, because really, there's not a lot of special effects beyond the monsters.
I'm sure Stephen King will call tomorrow.
Well, you know...
I mean, this won't even go up till like 2 weeks now, but you know, Stephen King will call them. I said King, right?
Yes.
Spielberg.
Well, Stephen King's pretty cool, too.
Yeah, well, yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. My brain's just fried a little bit. But, so where can they go to find your book?
It's available on Amazon, and there's a web shop called A Free Thinker's Corner that also has some in stock. But Amazon is always easy. You can also contact me directly. I'm on Twitter, and I'm Steve Van Samson. My Twitter handle is Steve Van Samson, so I made it really easy. And that's VANSAMSON.
And is there like a digital download?
Yeah, you can. It's available on Kindle through Amazon, and but if you contact me directly, I can send you. I sell signed copies, so
nice.
You know, no problem.
Have you ever thought about maybe like an audio version?
Yeah, I would love to do an audio version.
That'd be pretty
neat. It has to be read by somebody with an African accent, though. That's the only way it can be done. If it wasn't,
I can't do that.
If it wasn't, I wouldn't want it to ever exist.
Every accent I try to do sounds like the Monty Python French guy. So not even like a real French guy.
Silly English knickets.
Yeah. So that would be my African accent, just because I can't do stuff like that.
Well, there are a lot of French-speaking African countries, so
That's true.
Hey.
It's valid. I can totally do it. Let's start recording right now.
But as far as my main character, just real quick, you know how I'm gonna say it wrong, Mahershala Ali,
Okay.
right? So he was Moonlight. He won lots of awards for Moonlight. I think he didn't win an Oscar. He won, I think, like a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor. But he was also in Luke Cage.
Yep.
Oh man, yeah. He'd be my
he'd be your pick for that
amnesiac
guy. Yeah.
Masai. Yeah, I mean he's a little tall.
Yeah.
But he's perfect. He's amazing. He's an amazing actor. I thought Luke Cage went way downhill after he was he got he got killed off.
Yeah. So let's briefly talk about,
Sure.
because you said you wanted to talk about it. You're also a musician.
Yes,
So what do you play?
I play throat.
You play throat.
Yes, and that's
Sounds terrible.
Yeah.
when you put it that way.
well, that's the best. That's the best reason to say it. That's the best. That's the only reason to say that.
Okay.
So I'm a singer in a metal band called Enchanted Exile. We are on SoundCloud. We're on Bandcamp. And we have one album we put out about 3 years ago called Never After. And you can find that. That's available for purchase at Bandcamp. And we have the second album is actually coming out in... Well, it'll be this year. We haven't set a date yet, but
Okay.
we are very close. We're in final mixing stages, but we record everything ourselves and do everything ourselves.
Do you guys play out a lot, like Boston
We don't.
Providence,
We actually, you know
or-
what's funny? We don't play at all out.
Okay.
We are a studio band.
That's
we
it?
just do it. Yep, that's it, man. Hey, man, art for art's sake.
Oh,
man.
there's nothing wrong
You
with it.
know?
Yeah.
Isn't this the Inebri-art
Yes.
podcast?
100%.
Yeah.
So Inebri comes before art.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then, but yeah, no, I mean, there's nothing. It was more just a general
No, I
question.
got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does your metal lyrics tend to take a horror theme to it, or?
Yeah, sometimes there's a song. It's actually we put out a demo of this song, and you can actually listen to it right now on SoundCloud. Although the album version is going to sound a lot better. I'm just saying. A song called "On Widow's Hill," and it's actually it's just my love letter to old Dark House movies.
Oh, nice.
As previously mentioned. So it all comes full circle. Yeah, it's really, really, really cool. Lot of horror, classic horror imagery in those lyrics, and I was incredibly happy. Even though I feel like nobody in the entire world is going to get the reference, but I also mentioned the movie "The Old Dark House," which was a Boris Karloff movie, directed by James Whale, who also directed Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein and The Invisible Man. From the 30s, it's from 35. No, 32 is Old Dark House. And there's a line from that movie that I worked into the song. It's a little sound bite.
Oh, nice.
Which is I was just so incredibly happy to be able to include. And I'm like, no one's going to notice this.
But you'll never, like that one day that someone comes up and be
Yeah.
like, isn't that from, and you'll just,
Yeah.
that'll be like,
See, that's all it is. That's all I do. I plant seeds so that one day I can lose my shit when somebody actually appreciates it and someone like, hey, that crazy, obscure, deep thing. Yeah, pretty much.
Nice.
That'd be great.
Do you ever do appearances, bookstores, horror conventions, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I just started my. I went to Rock and Shock. I appeared with New England Horror Writers.
That's such a fun convention.
It was so good. Yeah, it was great.
I've done that a ton of times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's such a good time. And I
fun.
love conventions in Worcester because the convention center is here. Across the street is the hotel where everybody stays at.
Yeah.
And like the only place to eat is like the Uno's.
Yeah, that Uno's,
You're
yeah.
at the Uno's and all the celebrities are there. And
Yeah.
it's just such a small
yeah.
kind of island of whatever the
Yeah.
convention happens.
And you're like,
to
oh,
be.
that's Kane Hodder over there ordering
Yeah.
a quesadilla.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
I
Look at
was
that.
talking with crap. Now I'm not going to be able to remember his name. Played Dante in Clerks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brian
O'Halloran.
O'Halloran. Yeah.
O'Halloran, yeah. That.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were discussing hockey because he was sitting at the bar having a beer and the hockey
Nice.
game was on. And of course he was a Rangers fan, and I think it might have been a Bruins Rangers game, but you know, it's just. He's just a dude sitting at the bar, you know. It's just a fun little area to have a convention in.
It is. It really is. I had a really good time. I definitely am hoping to do as many conventions and appearances as possible.
I think
But
there's another horror convention coming up in Framingham.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there is one in Framingham. I'm not going to be in it, but I haven't booked any other appearances as of right now.
Yeah.
So let's just say that. But the season kind of starts right now. I guess a lot of people book tables about now.
Yeah.
And then it all sort of happens like in the summer and fall.
Fall is huge for conventions around here. So.
Yeah. So I definitely have put some feelers out for a couple of them, but yeah. But yeah, I love doing it.
Yeah.
I loved talking to people. I really, everybody else at the table was just like, what the hell's your problem? Why do you have this energy? I'm like, I don't know. I've never done this before. It's still fun for me.
Right.
Maybe after I do 100 of these, I'll be miserable like you. I don't know. Maybe possible.
But I feel like if you get to that point, then stop doing it.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But
I
it was fun for me the one time anyway.
Yeah. I just think it's fun. You get out, you meet new people,
Yeah,
you get to talk about
absolutely.
stuff you want to talk about.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, and people who come up to the horror writers table are interested in the horror books.
Right.
If they aren't interested in vampire books, we have like all these other great options.
Yeah.
So
And generally speaking, you get people there who are as energetic because they have whatever crappy job that they have.
Yep.
And this is their chance to talk to like-minded people about what they want and not be like, oh, that's that weird guy in the office that's obsessed with vampires.
Yeah.
I just find the energy at those are so much
Definitely.
positive.
yeah, absolutely. I love I try to stay positive in general. Like with talking about the internet and taking yourself seriously. Like, come on, everybody just needs to just
Be nice.
just be nice. Don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, come on, it's not that bad.
So thanks again for joining us.
Sure.
And I just want to mention that the Bone Eater King, you were kind enough to give us a signed copy.
Yes.
That we're going to include in our prize package when we get to 1,300 likes on Facebook. We will grab one of those 1,300 people and give them a prize package, which will now include a copy of the Bone Eater King. I might read it once. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Lightly used.
Yeah. So if it looks like it might be
Lightly
read
used
once,
copy.
that's possible. So thank you so much for that.
No problem.
And thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
And the best of luck to you, man.
Great.
Hey, no problem.
All right.
All right. Thanks for listening to our podcast. Don't forget to check out our other podcast. There's the Bar Talk podcast. There's Old Colony Cast. And, of course, the Inebri-art podcast along with Jam Packed. You can find all those on Stitcher, iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, pretty much anywhere podcasts are found. If you're on some sort of service and you can't find it, let us know, and we'll help you out and or add our podcast to that too. You can contact us at Inebri-art@yahoo.com and follow us on Facebook as well as Twitter at Inebri-art. And feel free to send us some tips, ideas, advice, hate mail, whatever it is, you can get us there. And again, thanks for listening.